Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast of Limitless edX. And we're really excited about today's topic. It is very relevant, being it's the holiday season and we have all the things. Addressing burnout, tips for parents, educators, and students.
Jeanette, I'm so excited to dive into this topic with you tonight.
Yes, and my name's Jeanette Easton, by the way. I'm the founder of Refound Education and my lovely co-host.
And I'm Andrea Harris, and I am the founder of Bloom at Home Learning.
Yes, this is quite the hot topic.
I
People
think we
are
are
stretched.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think we are in the thick of it. Actually, you know what, Jeanette, I was going to say, and I know we've talked about how we felt like, I personally felt like a weighted blanket was lifted off after I resigned from the school board for many reasons. But one of them was like just like the mental overload of everything and the overwhelm that comes with that, especially around the holiday season. I think we're much more likely, especially as moms, not to, go against dads. We know how important you are, and definitely fathers play such a huge role in children's lives. But, um, stereotypically, moms are doing a whole lot around the Christmas holiday season, like the presents, the gifts, the baking, the holiday schedule,
Mental
like
load.
everything. Yeah, it's an overload of mental stuff, right? And usually the last week of school is a different dress up day. Every day of the week, you have, in addition to that, all the holiday concerts. You have music recitals. You usually have, for moms who have kids in dance, you have all the holiday dance competitions or dance recitals as well. Sports, oh my goodness, hockey season with tournaments around this time of year. I think everyone is just stretched to their limit. And then add that in family visiting of family you don't often see and the expectations to do things traditionally how you always have been. I think I just actually did a post about this on Instagram today about how I think it's really important to recognize we don't have to exhaust ourselves and go broke over past traditions that we don't actually even enjoy. We can say no.
Definitely. And, as you're describing all those things, I'm wondering why even do it? I wouldn't even take on more than like one or two things for my kid on top of that sounds horrifically unpleasant to
Yeah,
do all those things. I think we need to learn that less is more. And that's not a terrible way to live as well. And, a lot of people don't want their kids to feel boredom, but boredom is where creativity thrives, especially for children. And it gives parents a great opportunity to do the things that they need to. Um,
definitely. I totally agree. I think simplicity is so underrated. And in the general term of everything, big picture, this is something you and I always recommend to families that are new to homeschooling or new to alternative forms of education. Oftentimes, the parents who are the most overwhelmed are trying to pack the maximum amount of things into it and have such high expectations of themselves when in reality, this is truly for every single parent to hear. All your child wants is you. They want your presence, not gifts. They want you, your authentic listening, your getting down on their level, setting your phone aside and really and making memories with them that way. I think a lot of the holiday stress comes from parents genuinely coming from a good place in their heart and wanting to make memories with their kids that will last. But at the same time, kids sense our energy. So they are going to be able to sense when we are stressed and overwhelmed. And I think by and large, moms in this season are often not giving their kids the best example through modeling of their behavior of taking on too much and then not being able to enjoy the actual moments because you're so stressed and burnt out.
For sure. And it comes back down to just the ability to say no. I
Mhm.
think life is very much an uncoordinated dance. It is never perfect. You are working like more here and then there. And it's a constant back and forth. So, and depending on the age of your children, younger children have more, primal type needs where, you're wiping bums and scrubbing, washing faces, brushing their teeth, supporting them in
Times
brushing
even,
teeth.
right? Like pushing their limits with bedtime and relatives giving them so much candy and yeah.
And just saying no, I handmade this advent calendar for my kids with
Mhm.
these bootleg Lego figures because they liked them so much. We had to stop because in gifting them just these little, this advent calendar, they were expecting things on a daily basis, and were wanting too much, and they became a little crazy. And I had to say, nope. No more. I labeled it for what it was to them. Like, no, when I give you guys these things, it was meant to be a treat. I thought it was a good idea, but and they're little. Do they fully understand? But I'm like, no, you get crazy. You turn into little zombies and you just you take it too far, and we just had to say no. And then I'll just I'll gift it in one package to on Christmas, but you just have to, if you try something and it's not working out, scrap it. Say
I
no.
think that is an awesome takeaway from this whole episode today is just the ability to say no and teaching your children that it's okay to say no to things as well. Because in terms of, the grand scheme of why we're doing this is because you and I were both raised in the school system, which is authoritarian, and you're not allowed to say no. You're not allowed to say no to a lot of things. Like even in terms of like just getting up to go to the bathroom when you want. The littlest kids can hear no to wanting to go pee. So I think in terms of being able to practice saying no to things, and also I know we've chatted before about some of the hardest things are you actually do have to say no to the things that you really want to do as well at times. And just prioritizing what's best for yourself and what's best for your kids is oftentimes a really taboo, difficult thing to do in society when you feel like you have all these expectations from other people. When in reality, who's the season for is our kids.
Exactly. And I think something else we don't prioritize, is asking for help. My village is the size of a Cheerio. It is a mighty Cheerio, but it is still a very small little dingy that I appreciate. But they don't know that you need support until you ask. And when things got really crazy, or, if something wasn't working out the way I needed to and I needed more support, I would ask them. Or I even had a friend's grandmother step in to be with the boys when I had, work expectations for a week. And they were so excited and built a relationship with them. And they had that like grandma energy that, there's just so much love. But yeah, but nobody knows. No one is psychic. So reach out to the people around you and just say, hey, I need a day for like Christmas shopping. I need a day of silence. Whatever it is that you need, do it unapologetically.
I think that's where community becomes so important as well. And in terms of speaking about this from the view of educators, I can say from experience of being in the system for over 20 years, we often don't ask for help as teachers. We think we can take it on, and there's many, many teachers out there in the system. I will say educators because not just teachers, but EAs, ECEs, CYWs, even administrators who are people pleasers and they're used to saying yes to everything. And that used to be me. And unfortunately, it got to a point where I would come home every single day and need decompression time. But what do your kids want, especially when they're really little? It still makes me really sad to think back on I needed some silence when I got home, and I was at capacity and I spent it at my job. And at the end of the day, when you resign, or we used to talk about this all the time at my school. So if any previous coworkers are listening to this, we used to actually say you could die tomorrow and your job would be replaced within hours. No one, like, no one cares. They care, but
Actually,
in the sense of like, in the grand scheme of things, you think you're a martyr.
it's actually worse than that because I walked into a school where an educator had died. It was very sad. Had was before his time. He was older, more sickly. But after his passing, not only was he replaced, the other educators came to get his belongings. Like, it was actually kind of savage, and I had to set boundaries with the people because they just came for his teaching belongings. Very,
Isn't that disgusting? Yeah,
I was, yeah, I had to set, I was like, this is not okay. Um, we'll set aside what's relevant. Um, I had teachers going through the garbage as I was separating things because an administrator had asked me to separate what would be relevant to like a newer teacher. Um,
Mhm.
and when I was throwing things in the garbage that, had way past their time, I'm talking about like VHS cassettes, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
even, and they were going through the garbage. And I was like, oh wow, this is a lot.
Well,
Uh,
that could
it
be
was,
another podcast episode on how some educators are very cheap
but it was,
or
well,
hoarders.
it was a little too far. But it just back to our original point is we are more replaceable. Who we're not replaceable to is our families. Um,
Definitely.
and the people that care about us, which is why it's so important to address the burnout, because your kids will miss you when you're gone. And
Definitely. I'm going to take I haven't even told you about this, but I'm going to do a new little take today in the chat too, because I think lots of educators listen to us who are still in the system. So if this is you, and you're listening and you're feeling this way, there's ways out. I think it's really important to recognize that all educators have amazing, talented, incredible skills that you can use in different places. So if you are feeling underappreciated and undervalued, then I would advocate to everyone feeling that way to start exploring in 2025 things that you can do outside of the school system that you can use your talents to make money. And I think it's a great idea, especially for everyone that kind of knows the direction that we are headed in society in terms of AI taking over a lot of things. I think it's a great idea.
privatization too.
Yeah. Yeah. Great idea to start looking into entrepreneurship and what you can start for yourself and just exploring different ways to make yourself happy. Because I think the worst place that we can be at the end of the year is where we were at the beginning of the year. So if there's been no growth in between and you're still feeling overwhelmed and run down and burnt out, and these issues and problems in the school system keep building and they're always the same, and there's never any real sustainable change. There may be change for a short while, or you may get a lovely class 1 year and then are overloaded with a lot of challenges the following year. We all know that that is the cycle. So as of right now, I would encourage anyone listening to start exploring the things that they're really good at, because every single person in the system who is listening and who has an open mind and an open heart to alternative education has great ideas that they can offer. And I think everyone that is going to leave the system or has left will be very needed.
Oh, definitely. Now, when you do become an entrepreneur, it is not without its points of burnout. It's not without its, being an entrepreneur. You are, especially in the beginning, you are the marketer, you are the administrator, you are the staff. Sometimes you take on many hats in the beginning. And then, of course, as you grow, you get people to fill those roles. Um, Now, even though it might be challenging in the beginning, you can grow to a place where you actually have a group of people around you that are in a very positive space. You grow to have a tribe, almost like a family. If you are gone, then you are missed. But of course, you can still move. So if you feel like, space isn't right for you, and we'll have another podcast on it, allow people to move and shift and ebb and flow as they see fit. That's what you're supposed to do. That's part of the whole self-discovery process. So if, a space isn't working for you, give it a solid chance. Don't get me wrong. But then you make the decisions that are best for you, but you are missed in those scenarios. You are part of people's families, and parents appreciate, and they're very committed to, of course, nothing is perfect. It's the building process, always challenging, but you can either work in the system where they will be, where you'll be depleted and replaced and coached
Undervalued.
and or you can, be your own leader of a pack, and you and your wolf pack can
I
just
think
build
you're
something beautiful.
that right there, I think, is a really important thing to discuss burnout in kids as well. So, what you just said about those experiencing burnout and wanting to try entrepreneurship, that was a great little speech for kids as well. So, we were going to address that in this podcast is just burnout among kids. Oh my goodness me. Kids are overscheduled now and they don't have a lot of time for play. So I think it's a really important time to recognize that children, little kids can also be burnt out because they don't have enough time. And I think placing unrealistic expectations on their time beyond their developmental age and what is appropriate and decreasing the creativity, free choice playtime as opposed to scheduled activities gets way out of hand, especially this time of year as well. That's when you see a lot of kids melt down. And then I think it's really important to recognize that that's part of unschooling and individualized learning is exploring what you do like and giving kids and teens the freedom to try different things. And if they don't like it, they just need to know they can always change. It's not set in stone. It's not, I think nowadays we're starting to finally realize that we're not choosing a career and staying in that career for 40 plus years. There's a lot of change happening in the job market and just in the ability to give kids the freedom to explore what they really love to do is going to help prepare them for the even bigger shift coming.
Oh, actually, that's always been a lie, but I think people told other people that the average people change their professions 5 to 7 times in their lifetime. And that was 20 years ago. That was
I don't know if there's a lot of teachers in that statistic, but
true. Or, public servant types, I agree. But in terms of like, you have to minimize like parent guilt. You want your kids to, have all the things, have all the classes, do all the things. But the reality is, you don't need to do that. They don't need the overwhelm. Like Asia, like China has higher suicide rates because of how they're too much when it comes to that. And even though, yes, it's important to be academic, but there's also, I heard someone who he was raised in China, he talked about how the West, there's more of a fear about failure. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, you need to be prepared to fail. You need to get used to failing. You need to fail again and again and again, where it's not always like they're so academic that that's frowned upon, but you need that
absolutely.
space to be creative and to grow. So it's and if you don't
I
give
think
the
it can
kids,
be very cultural in different expectations of where kids should be at and what they should be doing. And I think it's incredibly competitive in certain countries. So you bring up a really good point. In the countries that do place a lot of value in like producing and always doing more and never being good enough and always being able to study more and get higher marks and achieve more and do more and pack more in and there's no free time you should be studying. Those are also the countries with the very, very high suicide rate. So we definitely don't want to overflow into beyond burnout where it becomes severe mental health because that is so much harder to fix. I think once you're feeling that overwhelm, you can start to recognize. And that's why I thought it's such a great topic that we are discussing today because it goes from overwhelm to burnout, which is a lot harder to recover from, to then further
anxiety
on. Yeah,
issues and other kinds of snowball effects around mental health. And
yeah,
it's just not worth it. Even someone like do think kids should be competitive. I don't think competition's a bad thing. Like, I don't think the participation ribbon for everyone is we should drive them to be competitive, but there needs to be a balance. Um,
Hmm.
they need it like a day of rest. They need to prioritize their mental health. They need to do something for themselves. So even if they are, in something that's very focused or very competitive, find the space for them to be kids and
Yeah, like the balance, right? I always loved the statistic about Wayne Gretzky. You know, how he was one of the most beloved Canadian hockey players out there. But in terms of his hockey practice, he didn't do competitive hockey all summer long. Like he was very vocal about playing all different types of sports. Like he was into lacrosse and into oh my goodness, I don't have the list in front of me, but he was into a whole bunch of different things. So it wasn't like he solely concentrated on one thing all of the time. And really, realistically, if your child is that into one thing, I think the balance aspect is still very, very important and giving them the space to recognize competition with yourself is almost so much more rewarding than always competing against other people. I think when it becomes a sense of self-worth of always wanting to be better than others, that's where we get into the danger zone of really seeking validation instead of personal growth and satisfaction.
I like that. And especially, I think our goals should be we are better um, tomorrow than we were the day before, right? So, and if we take those small steps, and if you're feeling burnt out, especially when my kids were younger, and you know how it is when your kids are close in age, your kids are,
Mhm.
they will drain you in a different way. And teenagers will do that in other ways. But essentially, you just have to even if you're just sending one email, or if you just created a framework to get organized, or just like the smallest of things, if it sets you forward in one way or another every day, like don't discount those small steps that you take to get to a better place and to focus on the positive rather than the negative, because that will burn you out. And when does the work ever stop? Does it?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think we're being unrealistic to say we can solve everything, but I think there are very concrete, well-researched things that you can start to do and start to implement in your life to buffer anything that you are feeling in terms of overwhelm or doing too much or stress. Did you know that one of the number one things that you can do, and this is for adults and kids, and I think every teacher who's been through it probably knows the best thing you can do is get outside in nature. The number one thing, like sunshine, nature, just listening to the leaves and the trees and being really, really present. That's one of the things that they suggest doing for children and adults who are having anxiety attacks is go through all the senses. So name things you can see, name things you can hear, name things you can smell and touch and feel. No, touch and feel are the same thing. But you get it. But yeah, nature is a really good thing. Moving your body is really important. Studies have shown nowadays about the lack of physical activity among teenagers is outrageous in terms of like cell phones, social media, gaming. I never had kids that did gaming, so I was very fortunate in that. But I know that there's a lot of families who are really into that, and but at the same time, if they spent all weekend gaming, sitting inside and not getting out for fresh air and not getting physical activity, that's not good for their brains. So that's another thing. And that goes with adults as well, right? If you're sitting in front of a screen all day, get up and walk or jump around. There's things that you can do for a few minutes every hour.
Ooh, I just thought of a good one. Um, humor. Um,
Yeah.
I used to be when you're stuck in your sometimes people feel stuck in their work, or sometimes if you have, the young children, you're kind of there are limitations. Just using like be funny, use humor, play games that make you laugh, just be silly. Like if you're with each other all the time and it's going to be stagnant, the day to day can get, pretty monotonous sometimes.
Like
Break
humor's a
it.
huge one for me. Huge.
Oh, be silly, have a Nerf gun fight, have like just anything. There are,
Pets. I know some people, sorry to interrupt you, but I know a lot of people aren't pet people, but pets can be really great, especially for kids. That's one of the number one things you can do with children who are going through trauma. Like look at which is really sad that they have school shootings. But what do you see the following day is trauma teams bringing in golden retrievers that are like trauma dogs. So I think in terms of mental health or overwhelm or burnout, pets can really lift you up.
I love animals. I cannot, for the life of me, take on any other living thing where I might have to pick up poop or I can't do it.
It's okay. So it's okay. It's for
But
parents who are listening who are like, "Oh, I have a pet, Andrea. You're right. I love them. They
you
make
can
my heart
visit
light
a
up."
friend with a pet. I have some friends with adorable pets, and they take on the burden, and we enjoy the pleasant side. Or even animal shelters,
Yeah.
or they have like depending what your where your budget's at, but like equestrian, so like horse training and horse like different healing opportunities, or Gyre Hill Farms, like hello, go cuddle a goat, or like
I
they
know. Goat
you know that.
yoga looks so much
Oh,
fun.
I don't know about goat yoga. I do know some yogis that aren't fond of the goat yoga.
I
But
just think it's funny.
I know it's very but whatever you follow, whatever gives you makes you feel good within your soul and puts a smile on your face. um let's just focus on those things. So set boundaries, say no. What else do we say? Ask for
Lots of
help.
really yeah, ask for help and then applicable ideas like humor and nature and moving our bodies and yeah, just all of those fun things. Animals. Really great ways to buffer the holiday season. And if you are listening to this and it resonates with you, please always feel free to reach out to us and leave us comments. And honestly, if you're thinking about it in 2025, it's the best time to start thinking about things that you can start doing that don't burn you out, that light
Yes.
up your soul.
Start with a vision board, maybe.
Yeah, those are so fun for the new year to always do. So definitely the first week of January. I think I'm going to have a little freebie that I'm going to put out on all these fun things that you can do to set intentions for the new year. And I always like to use intentions instead of resolutions because it's your intent to do that. And just in terms of really focusing on things that you love that light your soul up instead of the negativity and stress around us right now, especially. And don't watch the news.
Yeah, I saw I guess we'll close things off with, I saw a really great idea where parents have done this like as a unit. Some families have gotten together, or the adults do it and the kids do it, but essentially you create like a vision board, but you list all of your goals, your personal like finance, depending, adult versus
Mhm.
child, what is relevant to you, and you just write it down and make it so that everybody can see what your goals are for the year. And I think,
Accountability. Yeah.
right, accountability, it helps other people to support you where you need support. And you can just say, I'm going to need help around this. And you'd be surprised what kind of reception you get when you just connect with others. And
I love that idea. Thank you so much for sharing, Jeanette. I think this was a great episode, and we look forward to our next few topics. But as always, we appreciate you listening to Limitless edX.